Hey everybody, it's Scotty from Scotty's Record Shop with another artist profile. Before I get into it, like always, like a broken record, thank you to everybody who watches these videos and who's subscribing to my channel. It can't be said. I can say I appreciate it, but that's really all I can say. But I really do sincerely mean it. This group that I'm going to do now is kind of a mainstream, AOR, album-oriented rock. Everybody knows about these guys because you still hear them on the radio constantly. But I want to encourage people. You hear the hits on the radio, but by doing this artist profile, I want to encourage you guys to either pick up some of their albums if you don't have any of them, or pull some of their especially the earlier albums out and listen to them again all the way through, because they really are great albums. I'm talking about the band Foreigner. Excuse me. And the band Foreigner actually has its roots in a few different bands. We'd hardly call it a supergroup, but members of, or at least one member of King Crimson, a member, Mick Jones, the leader of the band, the guy who owns the name. If you own the name, you are the leader, aren't you? At this particular point in time, played in a band called Spooky Tooth. A lot of you guys in the VC know about, or some of you guys know in the VC know about Spooky Tooth. He was on, I believe, some of the later albums, the 70s things. But and of course, Lou Gramm, who is in a band that's really overlooked, and a lot of people don't know about them, called Black Sheep. They put out 2 albums in 75. Actually, they put out a single in 1974 on Chrysalis, which is incredibly difficult to find, but good if you can find it. They put out 2 albums, and on Capitol, I believe it was. On Capitol, yeah. In 75, and I believe in 76. The first album was simply called Black Sheep. The second one was called Encouraging Words, I believe it was called, without looking. They're both not bad. They're definitely not Foreigner, but they're not bad. If you like Lou Gramm's singing voice, and who doesn't, honestly, he had such a great voice. Try to pick those up. They're not cheap. You won't probably find those in your dollar bin, but worth looking for. Anyway, Foreigner. First album issued in 1977. They were, poof, an instant success almost. But if you hear that album, which happens to be this one right here, you can't imagine why these guys didn't make it right off the bat. That's the back side. Cold as Ice, Long, Long Way from Home, Feels Like the First Time. There's your inner sleeve on that one. I mean, those were the songs you still hear on the radio. But, tell you, Star Rider on this record is just, there's your label, nothing unusual, typical Atlantic. Star Rider is just, it's my favorite song on the album. It's just an amazing song. And if you ever got a chance to see Foreigner back in the 70s, even in the early 80s, they jammed on that song for a long time. It's like a 4-minute song on the album, but by the time they were done, it was like 10 minutes live. They just cranked it. Great album. Pull it out if you've got it. Pull it out again and give it a listen. Even I know you've heard 3 of the songs on there. You hear them every day practically if you listen to radio. But that album is just great. Equally as good, almost as good anyway. Double Vision, 1978. Hot Blooded and Double Vision, and the single Blue Morning, Blue Day, which I'm going to show you something interesting about that in a little bit. There's your label, a little bit of a custom label to a certain extent on that one. Speaking of Blue Morning, Blue Day, let me reach over here and find it. I got it over here somewhere. Here you go. For promotional purposes, this is not the stock 45. You didn't get this on the stock. This is the promotional. Flip it around here a little bit so you can see. There's your promotional single, but check this out. Blue Morning, Blue Day. Blue vinyl. That was only a, like I said, this was a promotional copy. I'd never seen it. I've got a copy of the stock 45 upstairs, and it's standard Atlantic 45, but that's the promotional of that. Next album, 1979. Let me fix this again. There we go. Would be Head Games. Very interesting, somewhat provocative cover. And this is the inner sleeve I have in it. I'm trying to remember if that was the inner sleeve initially. I may have changed it out. I don't remember. And this is your Head Games. Right there. This is a really good album, kind of overlooked to some respect. Dirty White Boy, Head Games, but Rev on the Red Line, Women. Some other great songs on this record too. A good listen. The only thing that bugs me about this record is it almost seems like it was recorded too hot. The drums and stuff, some of it's really distorted. It's not just my turntable. When I got the CD, I was thinking, okay, maybe it was just years ago when the CD came out. I was thinking, well, we'll give it a try. But it always sounded just a little overly done, I guess. I don't know. But Head Games. Some major band changes. Band member changes for the next album. Mick Jones wanted more control and basically turned a 6-piece band into a 4-piece band. Got rid of some people, which was stupid because then you bring in studio musicians and you using the same people, same amount of musicians on tour, so you might as well have just kept the other people, but he didn't want to. But what he got out of it was probably their biggest selling album, 4 and a 4. An interesting note for some of you early 80s kind of synth pop or whatever, I don't know what you call it, but guy that some of you know and love, Thomas Dolby. He's on this record, actually. He's doing the synth work on Urgent, and he does a lot of the keyboard work on Waiting for a Girl Like You. Maybe you guys didn't know that. Who knows? And if you looked at the inner sleeve, you probably would see it there. There's your inner sleeve for that. Set up like a... That's your inside sleeve. Never mind. What I was going to say was irrelevant. I wanted to show you something interesting about the succession of 45s. There were 4 45s that shoot off of this. All of them charted, by the way. They weren't all big, but all of them charted. I believe it was 4. Yeah. And I've got a couple of them here. Show you how they did it. The picture sleeves were really interesting. 4 and a 4. Single number 1, Urgent. And if I worked a little harder upstairs digging it out, I could have shown you Waiting for a Girl Like You, which had a number 2. Then you had, what was the next single off of it? You had Jukebox Hero, I believe, was the 3rd single. That had a 3. And then you have Break It Up, which has a 4, which looks similar to the album cover. There you go. Anyway. So everybody's really... I love 4 and a 4 as well. I think it's a great album. So naturally, when the next album came out... Actually, let's go a greatest hits before we do that. Records. It's a cool gatefold cover. I believe this had a live version. I'm trying to see. I want to think that this had Hot Blooded Live. Now this is set up like a jukebox, but the cool thing about it is when you pulled the inner sleeve out, if you've never seen this, most of you probably have, there's your inner sleeve. It's actually the records, the song titles. And you have on the back here, just basically, I'll show you the inner of that. It's a custom label. Good record. You know what the really good thing about this record is, and why Foreigner fans should have it, is that it had all the single edits of the 45s. That's stupid, isn't it? Single edits of the 45. It had all the single edits of these songs that if they had single edits. And like I said, I believe it had the live version of Hot Blooded on here as well. Did I show you the inside of that? I think I did. One more time just for the heck of it. Okay, now on to their next album. We're all excited. Big Foreigner fan. We're going to get a new album. hear the song originally issued, I Want to Know What Love Is, I heard that, thinking, oh, okay, we're going to start off the album with a ballad, whatever, but it should still be a rockin' album. It's Foreigner, after all. Well, what we got was Agent Provocateur. Okay. A lot heavier on the synths. Some people really like this album. I really didn't care for it quite as much. By the way, that's not a crease in the label. That's actually, I don't know if I can get it back again, but you can see those little lines. Those are actually a part of the label itself, a part of the cover. Inner sleeve, basically just lyrics. And then the, similar to the outer jacket, the label is pretty much the same. I just wasn't happy with this record. I remember being in high school, me and my friend Dean, I think he got it first. And I was like, oh, man, you know, both really big Foreigner fans, you know, and then it was kind of like, well, you know. I don't remember his response to it. My response was, oh, you know, it just wasn't the same. We'd have to wait a few years for the next album. 1987. Kind of the same deal, basically. There were some hits off this album. Say You Will was the biggest. But it just didn't do it for me. Maybe it's just because, you know, maybe because I don't, personally, I'm not a big fan of, like, mid to late 80s synthesized, synth pop, rock stuff. I've never really cared for that. If you really dig that stuff, maybe you dig this album a lot more than I did. But, yeah, sure. Yeah. And your inner sleeve to that, lyrics. And for your label. Okay. Anyway. Another interesting note about Foreigner is they have been totally shut out and basically told by the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, by members of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, band members have been told flat out there's no way in hell you'll ever be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I could spend another 20 minutes talking about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and how it runs and what a joke it is in many respects. The facility itself is a wonderful facility in Cleveland. I've been there, but the way the organization run is a big political joke. But you'll never see Foreigner in there, and really, I think they should be. If the Eagles belong in there, and CCR, and there's nothing wrong with those bands. Please don't get me wrong. I love the Eagles. I love CCR. But if they're in there, there's no reason why Foreigner or the Moody Blues or a lot of other bands that have been shut out. But anyway, I'm digressing here. The point of this video is to show you my Foreigner stuff, at least on vinyl, and to encourage you to at least pull out the first 3 or 4 albums again and give them another listen. If you've never heard them before, give them a listen for the first time. It's good stuff. All right. Again, thank you very much for taking the time to watch. Until next time, everybody, peace and love.